Yes,
me,
my name's DominicSparkes. I'm the MD and founder of Temporo. We look after lots of clients, and what we do for them is predominantly moderation. When we're talking about moderation, it's a number of things. It's child protection, it's brand protection, legal compliance, and various editorial processes. We've been doing this now for 5 years as Temporo, and we were part of ITV for 5 years before that. Look after 5-6 million messages a month in 6 languages. And every moderator is police checked, and we've got lots of child safety processes in place as well. We also look after profiles on the usual suspects in terms of the social networks. That way. One more. There we go. So, next 5-10 minutes, I'm going to briefly talk about what brands want from moderation. What is moderation? And some of that's fairly self-explanatory, but there may be some things you're not aware of. Actually, why bother doing it? How we moderate, and that will affect potentially in terms of the development cycle of some of you guys, and considerations for Facebook and other social networks as well. When brands come to us and they're worried about moderation, they usually come to us last because they've forgotten about it, so it's a process that needs to be tacked on at the end of their project cycle. But they're worried about their reputation, and they want to make sure that their reputation isn't tarnished through inappropriate content, illegal activity, etc. They want us to communicate with customers on their behalf, take away some of the customer service issues that they have, and deal with those troublesome users that can cause problems. Related to that, obviously they want to decrease their workload. They don't necessarily want to have to moderate themselves or employ an army of moderators. And they want to use us to add insight into the content that's being posted on their application, on their profile or their space. And also share the risk in providing user-generated content areas. So for many of our clients, we provide indemnity against certain issues such as them being sued for copyright or illegal activity. So what is moderation? Well, it's more than just editing and deleting swear words. That's easy. It's about protecting users, in particular children. It's a duty of care for all of us if we've got systems where there's children that are involved. It's protecting the brand reputation, making sure that the brand is clean and above board, and avoiding a one-way conversation where users talk to a brand, but the brand doesn't talk back to them. That becomes a negative experience for users, and ultimately they'll go somewhere else to have their conversation. It's providing an editorial tone of voice. Now that could be just adding simple links and content into the messages that are being posted, or it could be adding classification, tags, and those sort of things, so it's more useful for search, marketeers, and researchers, etc. It's also managing the users, making sure that those that are being problematic, that you can try and make them into useful members of your particular Facebook or whatever society. Without just banning them outright, getting rid of users, it's nice to try and steer them into an actual a useful conversation. And one thing critical to take away, it's monitoring third-party notifications. And they just range from simple emails into you or through an alert channel of people telling you about stuff they don't like because it's maybe inappropriate, it might be illegal, it might be copyright. One example of that is this. I'm not sure if anyone's seen this particularly horrible Facebook page. This is the Parson Cross Crew named and shamed. So this is a bunch of lovely folk who somebody's put a page up basically saying that these guys are bang out of order, let's sort it out. All these pictures are being posted by the gang now. They've seen it as a badge of honour to get their pictures, like this guy there with a gun and a blade, very nice. And there's various comments up there as well. We've complained about this to Facebook 20, 30 times and alerted every single image, every single video, because we personally don't agree with it. Nothing's happened. Nothing's been done. If that had been on a brand site or a client site, just the press story you can imagine. So our job is to try and stop that. So you can use your moderators to do a number of things. Quality control. They can help make the content actually nicer, better, and actually, of a higher quality. They can interact with users and try and get a conversation going. So it's more than just a user-to-user experience. It might be a user-to-brand experience. They can report on the trends, tell you what people are talking about, and they can feed back into the business. While they're doing that, they're protecting the brand, they're protecting content, and if it's in a kids space in particular, they're protecting users. All this sort of ties up to making some kind of value out of social media communities, because for our clients, many of our brands we work with, if they can't get value, they're not going to bother doing it. How we moderate? The reason I'm mentioning this slide is because the way you moderate can make a big difference in terms of the cost, turnaround time, user experience. So we use 3 key methods. Pre-moderation, where the content goes into a moderation queue before it goes live. Post-moderation, where it goes live, but it is also looked at a moderation queue, so it can be pulled down afterwards. And reactive moderation, where actually nothing is looked at until somebody complains about it. YouTube's a good example of that. For the stuff we do for the BBC, for example, we pre-moderate all the CBBC content. All the children's areas, we look at that content before it goes live. The higher risk boards, such as politics, some news areas and religion, all post-moderated, so it goes live immediately, and then we still check every single message by hand. The higher traffic areas, though, such as sport, etc., it's all reactively moderated. And with a combination of those things, we can help our clients to get good value for money in terms of moderation, because you don't necessarily need to moderate every single message on some of these areas. Talking of the tools, there's very few effective moderation functions within the social networks in particular, but also forums, blogs and other areas. We look after Man United, Arsenal and Liverpool, for example. If the same 10 messages came into all three of those systems, it would take 2 minutes on Arsenal to clear them, 10 to 15 minutes on Man U, and perhaps 10 minutes on Liverpool. Times those longer times by thousands and thousands of messages every day, and you quickly see that effective, fast moderation tools make a huge difference to the amount of cost involved in potentially supplying these areas for brands. Third-party tools getting better and better. Friends at Nudge have been building some great stuff for Facebook in particular. Productivity will go up when moderation tools are good, either if we're doing it or if you guys are doing it or your clients are doing it. And the key functionality to bear in mind when you're developing these apps that might have a sort of some kind of commenting functionality perhaps are the basic actions, accepting, editing, deleting, that's obvious. Referral, so if a moderator isn't sure, perhaps they can put it in a separate queue and give it to a manager, so the manager can deal with it and the moderator can carry on their work. Escalation, so you might have something come in, a suicide thread, bomb threats. We get them all the time, and they need to be escalated in certain ways. The communication process, so for example, if you delete a message that a user's put up, how are you going to tell them? Are you going to tell them? If you are you going to do it through the app? Are you going to do it through email, some other system? User management, if people are being a pain, are you going to ban them? How are you going to ban them? For a couple of minutes, a couple of days, outright, remove their profile? And reports and analytics, so you need to know in terms of the moderators who's done what, where and when, and how many posts have been edited, deleted, referred, etc., because it's useful information to put into the mix. So finally, just a couple of things to take away that might be useful when you're talking to your clients. Carry out a risk analysis. What sort of content is going to come through your app? Is it going to be child safety relevant or something else that needs to be assessed? What's the moderation style needed? Pre, post, or reactive? How can you make the best use of the content that's coming through and moderate and protect that content as cheaply as possible? Is there a customer service element? So is the client or the moderators or you guys actually going to respond back to users, and how are you going to do that? What's the communication workflow? Are the moderation tools you've got or you're thinking of making going to be up to the job if, say, tens of thousands of messages are coming through? It needs to be as effective as possible. And finally, what ongoing resources are required? Often we find when clients launch these sort of spaces and they want to respond to a conversation within some kind of app or space, they don't realise that often those messages need to be signed off by marketing, HR, legal, all these other people. So there's a huge amount of resource post the moderation aspect that needs to be thought of. That's it. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I was quite interested in what you were saying about quality control and kind of moderation and working, alongside, say, a digital agency, for example. How does that work?
A number of ways. You might have a simple thing, trying to keep things on topic. So you might have a sports community, but everyone seems to want to talk about film, but that's not relevant. A good example is the BBC's 606 sports area. They used to allow everyone to talk about absolutely anything, which meant loads of traffic, which was brilliant, obviously, but it wasn't all sport related. So we worked with the BBC and actually turned off the ability for users to create their own threads, and they could only respond to threads that the BBC created. Now, content sort of throughput went down immediately, really quickly, everyone hated it. But within a couple of months, traffic is actually higher now than it ever was because the quality is much greater, because it's on topic and it's contextual to where they are. Any others? Okay.
So on the, say, BBC site, when posts are made over there, how do they integrate their messages with your tool?
We just log into their tools.
Okay.
It's really simple. Username, password, done.
Do you have any legal minds that help deal with things like libel?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've got a couple of legals that help us, but we're actually really lucky because we work with all the legal teams for our clients. So the BBC, Channel 4, Virgin, Sky, all these people, we actually use their lawyers more than our own. And so, for example, if with Liverpool, one of their players, there's a contempt of court case, they'll tell us, and then we can share that with our clients. So often, with those, Liverpool in particular, and some of their players, it comes through to us and we can tell the BBC. So they might find out before the BBC actually find out via us, which is quite handy.